Welcome to the Inside Digital Transformation Podcast. Inside Digital Transformation explores how organizations of every size and shape are using technology today to survive and thrive in the face of relentless change. If you are a business or technology leader charged with making the most of digital transformation in your organization, then this podcast is for you. And now here's your host, Alan Bernard, a technology journalist, editor, and copywriter who has been covering the intersection of business and technology for over 2 decades.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Amaresh Tripathy, Genpact's strategic advisor for data and analytics, about the central role that data plays in digital transformation today. In the early days, digital transformation was all about automating paper processes. Today, most organizations are well beyond that phase. They are now looking at how to turn digital technologies into business advantage. Key to that effort is combining data and analytics to gain the insights they need to revamp their business processes or even their entire organizational and business models to better meet their customers where they are with the products and services that they want. So Amaresh, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Okay, so today, obviously, we're talking about digital transformation, obviously. But I was interested in your take on it and how data plays, the role that data plays, right, in making that transition from what you were before, right? We'll just generalize it as much as we can to where you want to be, right? And so for me, it seems like kind of a no-brainer. It seems like, well, of course, data is part of it, but I think you have a different, more specific take on that. So,
sure.
So a couple things. So why don't we jump in? First of all, what's your definition of digital transformation? And then we'll get into this data-driven approach to it.
Sure. So listen, digital transformation is fairly straightforward in one way, but very hard to kind of define, very easy to define, very hard to do, which is, every business really exists to kind of get the right product to the right customer at the right time. Right? Fundamentally, that's kind of why businesses exist. Right. And digital transformation is about how do you leverage the advancement in the technology and experience and data space to be able to do that faster and better. It's fundamentally, that's kind of, that's what it does. You've been doing it one way. Now, are you leveraging the technology experience and data with all the advancement that's happened there to do it either faster or do it better? Right? And we can kind of go and unpack and define that. So that's kind of how I define digital transformation at its core. Right. And
there's also a sideways version where you're not necessarily making faster or better, but you are changing the status quo of how it's done. Right.
But status quo it is done is either connected to right place, right time, right customer. It's fundamentally, it's that. If you're not doing, even if you're doing it in a different way, the same thing, and if it's not faster, better, or kind of helping in that cause, doesn't matter.
Well, see, I think of so the reason I bring this up is just because devil's advocate is what I do.
Sure.
Right? But, think about the pandemic, right? None of those business processes improved by having everybody at home, but the underlying digital transformation that had to occur for that transition to happen was massive.
Right place changed overnight. So that's why you need digital transformation to make the place thing work.
Got it. Okay, I see where you're going. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump in then to tell me about this data-driven approach to digital transformation. What does that mean? Right.
Yeah. What it fundamentally means is, in some ways, I think you said it, which is like, it's obvious, but the reality is it's actually not very obvious to, I would say, the first generation or the version 1.0 of digital transformation that kind of started maybe like 7-8 years ago. Now I think it's a little bit more commonplace because, if you really think about all the most classic framework of any digital transformation or any technology transformation at that point, it has been people, process, and technology, right?
Right.
And it's been subsumed, data has been subsumed under technology. And it's kind of, people who kind of know what they're talking about, they understand data is part of it. But it actually, because it was assumed that whether it was not important, it got overlooked in many, many digital transformations. I think in the first time in many, many different ways. And which is why, if you think about the right framework right now, or kind of more accepted framework right now is people, process, technology, and data. And the reason is data is the glue between the other three.
So what was the first version of digital transformation? I mean, I see it as streamlining operations, right? Post Y2K, ERP, CRM,
Yeah, I mean,
SCM, right?
I
Just
mean,
go down that list, right? Cloud.
you could argue e-commerce was the first version in the early 2000s, kind of would be there, and then I think some of the business process kind of application layer that was being like the CRM. Right. They just said that those would be kind of like the first version of it. I would say, which were between 2000 circa to 2010, 12.
And basically data in that time frame was simply just something you accessed and worked with using technology as opposed to paper processes, right?
Yes, and more importantly, data was subsumed within the technology.
What does that mean?
So when I say subsumed, which was technology, it was meant that if I have a technology, if I have a workflow, if I have a application, data is actually already part of it, and I don't need to think about it separately because it comes as a package. And that fundamental model has evolved and has changed.
So is that where we are today?
Yeah,
that's where we are today. So data and the application, are you seeing them as one and the same at this point?
No, they are separate. Data and the applications are separate right now. Data is a very distinct. I mean, if you really think about it, if you go back to like a Forrester model, I think here, which is there are system of records and system of engagement, right? And now that has evolved into, which is ERPs, and kind of think about applications, CRMs and others. And now if you think about it, what has evolved, I would say this is like last 5 years, is system of records, system of engagement, and system of intelligence. And because the system of intelligence connects both is the glue between the system of record and system of engagement. And that design principle, I think, is probably last 4 or 5 years old, which has been established in digital transformations. That never used to be that way.
Okay. So data is separate, right? It's its own resource, I think is where
data is separate, it's its own resource, with its own importance, which is almost like the true orchestrator between people, process, and tech.
Right. And then some of the technologies around driving that are like microservices, right? Things like that.
There's a whole host of technology that are driving. The microservices is one element of it, but I would say the whole, I think what started with Hadoop and then it moved to cloud-based data sources and houses is kind of the ability to manage and structure and keep large amounts of data. There's been a whole host of technology evolutions there, and now we have like cloud-based data warehouses. We have this like kind of the Databricks, Snowflake kind of. There are other technologies kind of been there in some of the individual eras, but there's been, so that I think is the core data, the core progress in cloud-based data warehouses. That's been one. I think the importance of machine learning and scaled machine learning. Beyond just kind of like on the side experiments, that has been another driver behind it, because that's kind of why the data is going to get used. And third is obviously the API layer that obviously has played a big part. So yeah, there's been a few set of technologies I think moving together that has made it possible.
Right. And then like almost, it seems like unlimited storage, right? We're never going to have enough.
Which got the whole party started in some ways. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I remember we went, in a matter of like 24 months, we went from whenever there's not enough storage in the world for the next 6 months to suddenly nobody talking about it.
Nobody talking about it, yeah. The whole, both compute and, which is again the cloud piece of it, which fundamentally changed. If you really think about it, kind of cloud changed the data game altogether.
Okay, yeah, right. And the compute game as well.
Compute game, yeah.
So, and I guess my reference to microservices is, this one service services multiple transaction, multiple processes, right? And the same data is likewise serving multiple transactions, multiple processes, right? From a data lake or a data warehouse or a data mart of some sort, correct? As opposed to a one-to-one marriage between an application.
The whole reusability, yes. The whole reusability framework kind of, which is in some ways, it's earlier data used to be either, I mean, if you really think about it, you have the ODS layers, right? Which is like data used to be in serve of an application, or data used to be you kind of hive it off and the analysts who used to use it for analysis. And the microservices layer actually enables for the same data source to be used for both in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So then how does that inform your digital transformation strategy? How does that change your digital transformation strategy if that's just kind of where things are going today anyway?
It doesn't. It's not about how does the data digital transformation changes. I mean, digital transformation strategy, you can align to that whole business goals remain the same. What changes is is if you think about data as the glue layer, which I talk about, right? If it's the glue, if you don't get the glue layer right, you're going to miss out. You will miss out some or the other, because this is the one that binds the whole thing together. And so what changes is the emphasis you start putting in on your data and your approach around the data strategy, or in terms of kind of where would you store it, what will you do with it, in planning the digital transformation, and then kind of resourcing it the right way and thinking about it the right way, and having the right team around it. And that's basically the point: is are you thinking about the resource investments and the planning and the structuring of our digital transformation strategy with data and as a core? Because if it's the core, it's the glue, then the other pieces will start kind of or get orchestrated. It becomes a lot easier to orchestrate that. The core digital transformation, it obviously doesn't change. That's kind of that's kind of aligned to your business strategy, but how you do it actually changes.
Right. But I mean, if your digital transformation is infrastructure focused, for example, and you're just trying to offload data centers because you're sick of that business, and you want to just, use ICE or, infrastructure as a service, use a hyperscaler. How does data fit into that rather simplistic version of, simple air quotes version of digital transformation, right? And things like that.
Justify, I would say, you move to the cloud is absolutely a big digital transformation. I'm not denying that. But then the question is, because you are at the cloud, what are you able to do? That, right. I think, is the digital transformation.
Sure, that's the next phase, right?
That's yeah. Okay. If you can say this is the phase one of the digital transformation, get it? Yes.
Right. So I'm just trying to start at a very basic level. Yes. So then in that scenario, then the questions around data though involve access, distribution, geographic location, right? Right. Yeah. The egress issues, who's going to host it, what type of data, right? There's just all kinds of technical questions around that. Right. But if you take it to that next layer, okay, so how do we use these new capabilities, this new agility, flexibility, right? Microservices, architectures, containers, things like that, to then enable better services, enhanced services, faster time to market, right? The product mindset as opposed to a project mindset, right? And then what role then does data play in that next level, right?
I mean, it's everything. I would say the next level, everything is about data. Because actually, there's a client of mine who's actually going through that journey that you talked about, right? Which is they're moving the data, they're doing a lift and shift, and now they have justified the entire spend with some cost takeout. But also, I mean, you can argue, by the way, whether there's real cost takeout or not. That's a different issue.
Long term, that's a
long-term thing. Yeah. But then the other piece of it is, hey, I can do cross-sell better. I can do personalization better. Those kind of things that they have customized.
Analytics. Right.
And then they realize that two things they're realizing is, one, hey, actually the on-prem on my application that was a kind of on-prem, it really wasn't I didn't have data governance the right way. My data hierarchy is not the right thing. Actually, my taxonomy is also not right. It's a lot of effort to go do all that kind of stuff. I need to fix that. Right. And by the way, so let me just shift it, and then I will fix it on the cloud and re-architect my data so that I can go and do these things faster. Just because they're on the cloud, if I haven't invested in the data layer in the right way and have thought about it, I won't be able to go and just because they're on the cloud, I can't use microservices. Right. I need my data has to be factored the right way. And that is kind of where the next stage of that journey they are in right now.
So for this to continue this conversation, what are some of the things that they need to change, refactoring, to make the data more useful now that it's in the cloud?
The two or three things, and again, I mean, some of the things they need to change because there is, like this tech debt, there is data debt, which is there. I think they have to get rid of some data debt, which is having the right governance around it, right? Having the right mastering of the right data of their customer master, right. Like a vendor master. I mean, those are basics. No matter where you put the data, you have to do that. And over a period of time, when you grow by acquisition or new channels open up, different things happen, and you are not like on top of it, and you add a lot of data debt. So there is a data debt aspect of it that actually happens, which needs to be done wherever you need to do that. And the second piece of it is, how do you actually just organize the data now that you know that in the same platform you are able to hook up your ML models a lot faster, a lot easier, or you can go and start thinking about lineage in a very different way of the data. So your new capability to then you start putting in to manage and organize the business on a much more real-time basis. There's no instrumentation you will put in, a new way of so there's a debt. In some ways, there's phase one, which is removing the data debt, and phase two is adding the new tech layers around it, or the new layers capabilities around it, so that you can move the entire decision cycle faster. And there are some new things that needs to be part of that, right? Like think about ML flow, right? I mean those kind of things that you didn't need to deal with when you're doing an on-prem batch once a day kind of a thing. You operate the business differently. You have different tools for that.
Right. Well, or opening up the data to create new services, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And how do we have to restructure that data in order for the real-time nature of X, Y, and Z to be available, right?
Exactly.
Or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you even capture? Like if you're going to make decision on a sub-second scale, I mean, like think about IoT. I mean, like what do you keep? What do you not keep? How do you organize? Versus if I'm going to do it once a day.
Right. I think a great example of that is when UPS and FedEx started opening up their, where your package was. Yes. I mean, it seems really basic today, but that was not that old. It's only not even 10 years old.
Yeah.
And that was great. I was like, oh my God, it's in, it's just south of here. It just landed. It's just on its way. It's like, wow. It was just like, that's so neat. Right. And it's like, I know where my package is. Right. And
right place, right time. Right. Speed it up and just understanding that.
And it's a trivial thing. It's going to get here when it gets here, but it was just an interesting thing.
Yeah.
An interesting.
And take that and expand it to Uber, which fundamentally created on a new data stack, which leveraged it on a native basis. I think when FedEx and UPS, I'm not familiar with them, but like from a tech stack perspective, but my guess is when they did it, they kind of jerry-rigged their infrastructure to be able to do that. Uber, on the other hand, I mean, that was the core of the design principle of how everything got fabric.
What is then, what is a data strategy, or is that what we've kind of gotten to? Is that what we've been discussing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the data strategy is I mean, there's a technical framework definition I can give, and everyone would have a technical framework definition, but fundamentally, if you really simplify it, the core of it is about understanding what business capabilities you need that you need to do for your business that you're trying to do, depending on the business you are, and to support those business capabilities, which we call the use case kind of
there you go. Yeah, sure.
Right? Sure. I mean, you need a few different things to organize the data. You need to think about the technology and the architecture that around to do it. You need to start thinking about kind of the metrics and taxonomy and the quality element of the data. You need to start thinking about the skill set of people that will manage those technology aspect of the data. And you need to start thinking about the security and governance of the data. I mean, so there are 4, 5, 6 elements of that you need to do, but they're all tied in the service of some of the business capabilities and which tied to some of the use cases that you need to start backing up into. And that just laying that out in a thoughtful way and in a programmatic approach, and putting a roadmap around that. So once you understand what are the choices you're going to make and how you're going to do it, you need to start putting a roadmap around it compared to where you are today and where you want to go. And that effort of doing that piece of work is essentially data strategy for you.
Right. Yeah, and this is obviously around business applications, right? And business processes, not specialty clinical stuff or OT things, right? Primarily is what we're talking about here, right?
I mean, it would be true for all of it.
Okay.
Why will it be only business process? It will be like, I want to improve my. I mean, we have done we've done work in, like, for instance, if there is someone who wants to do drug discovery in a very different way, a life sciences company, let's say, wants to do drug discovery in a different way. I mean, that's kind of, it's not a business process for them. It's kind of, core of kind of what they're doing. It's the same thing. You can apply some of the same capabilities around, hey, listen, I need to increase this, I publish, or I'm looking after 100,000 pieces of research. I need to kind of search on that research much more quickly to see what the trials I'm running, to what is actually happening in the research very quickly, how quickly I can get to that answer. I mean, yes, I mean, if that's a capability, which is like I need to constantly have a comparative intelligence through the medical research aspect of it, that's a capability. And again, you lay out the whole data strategy around it, or that talked about security, governance, technology, everything. And you need a knowledge graph, or you need Elasticsearch, all of that kind of stuff. And so you can pretty much take it for like any business capability that you would want to create.
Okay, let's talk. So you lay it out nicely for me, in the emails that we had before the call.
Yeah.
So what are the main elements of this strategy? The first one that you lay out is invest in data-driven partnerships and connect with analytics experts to create industry-led augmented intelligence strategies. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But can you kind of simplify that, or can you expand on that? How would you want to approach it?
It's actually, it's written in a verbose manner, but fundamentally, what you need to start thinking about is the data value chain, right?
Okay.
And because we normally think about data strategy sometimes as a kind of, I almost give the analogy of a bucket, like, okay, things are going from everywhere and kind of goes into the bucket, and that's as we think about the bucket. But the data strategy is actually is thinking about the value chain. It's like, okay, where is it originating from? Where does it land, and where does it go? Right. Yep. And who uses it and for what? I mean, that if you kind of just lay that out in almost like a flow aspect of it, that is apart from like the framework that we laid out how you do the data strategy, but that's essentially that's what this means. Is you need to start thinking about, hey, is a machine going to use it, or an application going to use it, or a human is going to use it? It's going to feed a dashboard for what? Is it like a revenue dashboard, or is it a predictive maintenance dashboard, or like for an alert system that is going to give out for event based? It'll be time based. You start thinking about all of that stuff, right? So you start thinking about like who are the end points of that. And then you say, okay, based on that, what do I need to architect? What's the bucket need to look like in some ways? And then you kind of go back and say, okay, where is the stuff flowing into the bucket from, right? And what control I have of the data quality, of the lineage and other things, so that I understand that. And obviously the world is changing itself now. I mean, you think about these fabrics and everything, you say, oh, by the way, do you even need the bucket, right? I mean, you don't even need the bucket. Why don't I kind of just put like in a much more federated, decentralized data architectures that are kind of coming up, the data meshes and other thing. Oh, I will actually kind of completely distribute. I'll create like small glasses everywhere the data, the source system layer itself, and collect it and push it to the right place. It's kind of a many-to-many kind of an architecture. Okay, there are different ways of thinking about technologies and approaches around it that have come up. But fundamentally, I would say is the more you start thinking about the flow from origin to the destination and all the other hops in between, that actually allows you to optimize the entire data infrastructure, the talent, people, governance, security.
Sure. The next one, where you're talking about diagnose and improve outdated processes. Well, my question there was, that's just BPO, right? That's just business process optimization. That's an ongoing effort at smart companies anyway. That they keep what isn't broken. Obviously, you don't try to fix a process that works well, right? Maybe you digitize it, maybe you expand it, maybe you scale it, maybe it goes horizontally scaled, right? Or whatever. But, changing a fundamentally working process is probably not a good idea. But there's plenty that aren't, right? And so kind of dive into that in the context of data-driven digital transformation, because to me, that just seems like what businesses do kind of all the time.
And again, I think you have to take either an incremental, or obviously we think about this a whole lot, which is kind of, you can take an incremental approach to this, which is what you just said, which is a continuous improvement framework, right? I mean, you can Lean, Six Sigma, there are many fantastic continuous improvement frameworks are there. And the idea is, I'm going to kind of tweak I'll continue to tweak the process. Like I'll continue to look at exceptions. And as the exceptions kind of come up, I'll kind of go to the root cause and kind of fix it. And it'll continue to get better and better, right? And if you think about Celonis as a technology, which is kind of that, which is a tool that actually allows you to now scan the data into how the process flows, and they're a partner of ours. But that's the same philosophy around, hey, there's a data as a continuous, as a core part of a continuous improvement program. Earlier, it used to be just are there like what are like people and process related continuous improvement that I'm able to do? Now data is informing my process. That kind of, you can argue that existed in some ways. The other question is, can I actually the next level of iteration is, can I actually sort the work in a very different manner? Think about collections, right? Mm-hmm. Which we do a fair bit, right? And it's the same process. But what do I tend to, but assuming that I have more work and less people most of the time, and like I have a resource constrained environment, what do they actually work on? And in which order do they work on, right? What people work on. And that's true for like, think about anything, right? It could be sure. Like supply chain, like planning, or if I logistics distribution, to like claims, which I'm going to process. Not all of them are the same. I mean, there's an order which is more valuable to me or is more valuable to my client, and I understand that. And that's, think about, I would say, machine learning to align the higher value stuff. How will you define value in the right appropriate manner? You don't change the process, but you actually change the outcome, and you move the needle, and improve the quality without changing the process itself. Right. That's kind of that's I would say the second generation. Now, the third part of it, which is kind of, I would say, the holy grail, which is how do you reimagine the entire process using data, right? Because I have the data. So, for instance, I'll give you another example of that. We were working with a insurance underwriting, the underwriting process of an insurance company, and basically the intent is you have a lot more demand coming in, and you have to go and bid for the underwriters have to essentially go and write up a contract and a bid for work. And there's a whole host of stream of stuff coming to you on your way. And earlier, they used to start thinking about the process in terms of, hey, I mean, it comes in, I will sort the program, which one I need to go and bid, and I will write the contract, and I'll kind of send it, and so we'll change the win, we'll figure out what we win, what we not. But if you really think about it, hey, what are the 3 other data elements that I need to get upfront that actually will improve my probability of whether I should bid on it or not? Right. And suddenly you don't even bid on most of the stuff that you are thinking the likelihood of winning is a lot lower. I actually fundamentally change the process itself.
Okay. In that example, a claims processor is what are they bidding on?
It's an underwriting processor. They are bidding on an insurance contract. So basically the brokers are, let's say you want to go and insure your ship, maybe, okay, whatever, think of a large commercial thing, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right? And the shipping company goes to a broker, like the broker actually goes and sends it to 15 different carriers and say, hey, listen, this ship is there. Who wants to go and bid for it and put an insurance cap on it, right?
Bid on this cargo for the next 2 weeks as it transits the Atlantic, and then the contract ends. And
exactly. Okay. And so understanding that, you can kind of change that process very well, because so you're going to win a few of those, and that the people who are able to go and write a contract on a ship insurance, there are very few of them. There are a lot more ships or a lot more buildings, a lot of other things. So you have to be very thoughtful around what you go after.
Interesting. Yeah. So the profit goes up and the effort goes down if you do it correctly.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the holy grail, right?
With the holy grail.
Yeah. 100% profit for 0% effort is the ultimate business outcome, no matter what, right? In any business, right? So, right, 0 effort, 100% profit, provided there's a profit to be made. If you put in 0 effort, there may not be if you put in 0 effort. So there's that. Okay, interesting. So, all right. So it isn't dissimilar from business process optimization, but you're looking at it, I guess, in a more informed or enlightened way, right? So you're taking that next. So level 1 is these 5 steps. Let's organize them. Okay, done. Level 2 is what's underneath each of those steps, right? Yes. Let's reorganize them based on something in that data. Done. And then the third step is let's apply technology data, and in this instance, machine learning, to optimize yet again and decide which bid we're actually going to.
Or what process do I actually change up front, and I don't even eliminate steps of the process altogether.
Right. Yeah. So don't even take in bids that aren't going to be worth your time. You don't even get
exactly. In the first one, data is one of the lenses. In the second example, data is I would say the like a little bit more significant lens into the whole setup. And the third one, data is the primary lens, how you're looking at the whole thing. And it's that I think is the progression as you start thinking about. And the MTN example that you gave seems to be in kind of number 2 and number 3, somewhere along that bucket. And again, that has mortality or data.
Yeah, and I'm going to guess 10% of companies are in the third bucket.
If that 5%. That's generous. That's very generous of you. But going back to the strategy piece of it, is what is, if the most important part of a strategy is what is the North Star you are marching towards.
Say it again.
What is the North Star you are marching towards?
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And if you do not define those, you can be in a very different place. And you just say the reality is very different for a lot of the companies. But if you have the goal, well, this is what you want to get to, and a very reasonable plan to go towards that, that's the data strategy.
All right. Well, Amaresh, thank you very much. This has been great.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed the conversation, Alan. A lot of fun talking to you, and I'll go and listen to that MTN podcast of yours.
Yeah, definitely. Listen to all of them. Tell all your friends to listen to them as well. Okay. All right. Take care.
Thanks so much, Alan. Bye.
Bye. If you liked this episode, please tell your friends and check out our other shows. You can find Inside DT on all the major hosting platforms, including Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Google. Talk to you soon.